Got this Beta 250RR, has Electron carb, which continues to have problems, so owner wanted to go back to the original Keihin PWK air striker, which was leaking fuel out the overflow when it was on the kickstand, which is likely a float issue. So we're going to tear this apart, probably clean it, check and adjust the float height, and then see how it runs from there. Got the float bowl off here and checking the float height. Normally I put the carb at 90 degrees and then slowly rotate it until it's about 45 degrees, and the float should be pretty much parallel with the carb body, so that appears to be right, but then when I keep rotating it, it goes all the way down, which is pretty much bottomed out. So there's either something wrong with the spring in the float needle, like it's worn out, or I don't know, it needs to be adjusted. So I'm gonna raise it up, or I should say I'm gonna raise this up, which is actually lowering the float height because this is upside down. Alright, I got the float tab bent here to lower the float height, so now check it by rotating it, and it's supposed to be about 60 degrees. The height from the carb body to the top of the float is about 8 millimeters. I think stock it was about 6 millimeters, so hopefully that 2 millimeter difference will stop fuel from leaking when on the kickstand and maybe get a little better gas mileage because it's not sucking up so much fuel. Got the carb back on the bike, got the fuel line hooked back up, so I'm going to turn the fuel on, let that float bowl fill up, and it's on the kickstand now, so we'll see if fuel leaks out the overflow. And looks like the fuel stopped flowing there, so the float bowl should be filled up. It's not leaking yet, so that's a good sign. Alright, still no leaking fuel. I'm actually going to put the kickstand up and see how far we can lean the bike over before it starts leaking out the overflow. There we go. And that's about right. I mean, it's probably a 45-degree angle by the time it started leaking, so should be good. If you're having trouble tuning your carb, or if you're just starting out for the first time, you want to get your bike running right, but you're confused or a little bit nervous and don't want to mess it up, I'm going to show you how to properly tune the air screw in just a few minutes here. So the air screw, which is right here, this little flat blade brass screw, what it does is controls how much air is going into the pilot jet circuit, and that controls your idle to roughly quarter turn throttle response. This means that it's the most important jet circuit so that you have easy starting, proper idle, and good, sharp, crisp throttle response right off of idle. Right now we have it set at 1.5 turns out. And if I start it up, the engine's already warmed up. You always want to do this with a fully warmed up engine because the air-fuel ratio changes as the engine warms up. So right now, it starts pretty easy, idles properly, but when you whack the throttle, there's a little bit of a bog there. That, to me, tells me that it's lean. So, if we want to richen the mixture, we want to turn this air screw in, because as we turn this out counterclockwise, that opens it up and allows more air in to make it leaner. But we want it richer, so we want to turn it in. That 1.5 turns out, we're going to go to 1 turn out. Sounds a little better already. So we'll test ride it quick. I like to start at a low RPM and whack the throttle open. And that has nice, crisp throttle response. But when you adjust the air screw, you'll sometimes have to change the idle RPM, because as you go richer, the RPM is generally going to drop down low. So I could turn the idle up just a little bit. Here's the idle screw. Whereas if you leaned it out, the idle RPM would increase. Then I'd back this idle screw back out to turn the idle RPM down. You might be thinking, well, what if I have a rich sputter. So it's right off of idle. Well, that would mean that you're too rich and you need to go leaner on the air screw. So instead of turning it in clockwise, you'd want to turn it out counterclockwise. And what I like to do is just go half a turn at a time, listening to the engine, feeling the throttle response, listening for that bog, whether it's a lean bog or a rich bog, which I have a video on where you can tell the difference based on sound. You just keep on going until it gets better and completely eliminates the symptom. But if half a turn isn't enough and you're just like, Kelly, I can't really tell a difference, what you can do is turn it all the way in until the screw won't turn in anymore. You don't have to do it very hard, just lightly seat it against the carb, and then back it out half a turn. Start it up, test ride it, see how it starts, idles, runs, throttle response, and then stop, turn it out to 2.5 or 3 turns, which is about the max adjustment that you want for the air screw, because if you go more than that, it's going to fall out and it doesn't do much for the actual jetting. Then compare. How does it start, idle, and run half a turn versus 3 turns out? If it's better at half a turn, well, that's your good starting point. Or if it's 3 turns and it runs better, well, that's your better starting point. So you can go from there. And ideally, you want to have it between 1 and 2 turns out, which will give you a little bit of adjustment both ways, because temperature, humidity, elevation play a role in how your jetting is affected. Because it's not just to set it and forget it, although these run pretty blasted good as long as you're riding in the same climate. If you're intimidated by carb tuning, it's not as hard as you think. Especially these Keihin PWK carbs, they're pretty blasted simple. You just need to understand the symptom, know what change you're making, like understanding what it actually does, and then make one change at a time. If it gets better, you're on the right track. If it's getting worse, well, you need to go the opposite way. And if it doesn't feel like it's making any change at all, well, you probably didn't make a big enough change, or you're changing the wrong thing. If you want to get your carb tuned and you live near Oak Grove, Minnesota, you can fill out the form on my website. Link is in the description below. Otherwise, if you want a free air screw tuning guide, which is the best, easiest, fastest way to get started mastering your carb tuning, I got a link to that in the description below. Whether you have a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke. I'm Kelly Fagan from MXHideout. Ride safe, have fun.